What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Going the Distance podcast presented by ImmaculateSports.com. Twitter's at ImacSports.
Instagram is also at ImacSports.
TikTok, YouTube, Immaculate Sports. It's episode 248. Another week into the baseball season. We finally have real all-star game brackets and ballots, is what I mean. Not just the hypothetical ones we were doing a couple weeks ago, but a lot of stuff to talk about. A little Hall of Fame talk, a little college baseball talk. We know the team's going to Omaha. Just business as usual.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun week. Bit of a different pace, I would say, for the stuff that we talk about during the meat and potatoes of the episode, looking at the College Baseball World Series and some other stuff in the MLB that we'll get to in a little bit. We'll start off with the opener, though, Skyler. You have a question mark on yours. Tell me about what's going on here.
Yeah, so I felt like this would be a good week to at least check in on the Stanley Cup because we're not really hockey guys. But the thing about this matchup is you don't have to follow hockey to understand what the deal is here. You have Edmonton, winner of the East. They have Connor McDavid, one of the most popular athletes in the world, basically, against Florida. The Florida Panthers, a team that have been here many times before. Game one, Edmonton wins a crazy one in overtime at home, which I watched, which was awesome. The second game, they lose to Florida in double overtime, 5-4. And then Monday, we just saw what happened. Maybe a little tired after the travel. They get smoked by Florida 6-1, which is unfortunate. But basically, my opener is going to be outside of the baseball talk we do today. The best thing was we had two crazy overtime Stanley Cup games. And even though I didn't watch the whole game, it was still better than most of the other stuff out there available to watch this weekend.
Yeah, it's been pretty uncharacteristic for me, the Stanley Cup playoffs. I don't think I've watched a single second of a game. Usually I watch the Stanley Cup. Usually I watch some other series as well, too. But I don't know, for some reason this year it's just not been on my mind as much. My opener, though, it's going to be a guy from Canada that I'm talking about, and that's Denzel Clark and his ridiculous catch that he made yesterday. I mean, it's crazy seeing the amount of just publicity he's been getting from this. I believe his Instagram followers has doubled. There's a post on Bleacher Report that's got nearly 1 million likes, which is way more than any baseball post usually gets on those accounts, whether it's Bleacher Report or House of Highlights. And this is something that, through 16, 20 games, whatever it's been for Denzel Clark in the big leagues, maybe the bat hasn't been there that much, but the defense is just off the charts. But we've said it in our group chats multiple times that it feels like he's like a generational fielder. And when you look at the advanced metrics, whether that's outs above average or whatever your choice is, he seems to be near the top of the leaderboards right now. And, a third of the games that all these other players have played. So watching Denzel Clark roam around in center field has been fun as an A's fan. And over his time period being on the A's, he hasn't seen a ton of victories, but watching him play center field is worth the price of admission, even though I haven't physically seen him with my own two eyes.
The prince of fielding, if you will.
No, that's true. We will move into our player, pitcher, rookie of the week as we always do. Skyler, let's get started with the player of the week. Who did you choose here?
Yeah, it's another week for me when I'm just going to go with the top OPS guy because nobody outside of Pete Alonso hit for as much power as him this week. Polar Pete goes 10 for 22 with 5 more homers and a ridiculous 13 RBIs during a stretch where his Mets split against the Dodgers on the road in LA, and then they swept Colorado. So just a great all-around week for the Mets. When I can't really decide, I'm going with power and who helped their team win the most games.
Yeah, mostly going with Pete Alonso for my player of the week. 5 homers, 13 RBIs, and OPS over 1,700. I believe he's got 18 RBIs in the first 8 days of the month of June. So that's pretty ridiculous. But Pete Alonso, my player of the week, just driving in runs like it's nobody's business right now. RBIs might be the biggest aura stat.
Sure.
Yeah. On to pitcher of the week.
Shout out to a couple of former LA guys, Griffin Canning, Patrick Corbin, but I'm going to go with your guy, Merrill Kelly. 2 fantastic starts this week, 7 innings shut in Atlanta, and then 6 innings shut yesterday against the Mariners. Specifically was watching him closely this week because of some of the bets you made about his starts with Atlanta, and he got the job done, or with Arizona against Atlanta, and they got the job done. Yeah.
Yeah, mostly going Merrill Kelly for his 2 shutdown starts. Like you said, 13 innings pitched, only 5 hits allowed in those 13 innings, 0 runs, 15 strikeouts for pretty much the only good thing going on right now in the Arizona Diamondbacks rotation. Our pitching staff as a whole is Merrill Kelly in the season that he's been having. So when they needed him most, got the job done. On to Rookie of the Week.
Yeah, I was going to say, a lot of people outside the Bay Area may not understand this one, but then he makes the catch last night. It's Denzel Clark. He is the Rookie of the Week without a lot of hesitation from me either, because he made the catch of the year 3 separate times in just 2 weeks. He just keeps on outdoing himself. You mentioned it. The bat is still a question mark, but as a 9-hitter with unlimited potential in the outfield, you can get away with that a little bit. And at the very least, he's looking above replacement level. He got 4 more hits this week. That's all you can ask for.
I'm going to go with Jacob Wilson for my Rookie of the Week. Maybe just a scratch pick here. 12 for 26, a homer, 2 doubles, 6 RBIs, and an OPS at 1.135. Denzel Clark, great choice as well, too. Maybe just the bias in me, even though I went with an A regardless.
Maybe I'm grading him on a curve. I don't know. Jacob Wilson, of course, is ridiculous. Yeah.
Who knows? But I'll go Jacob Wilson just so we can get both names in there.
Yeah.
Moving on to the College Baseball World Series prediction that we're going to do. I believe this is the second straight year that we've done this where we've picked the bracket throughout. It does get a little tricky because there's a double elimination bracket, and it's not really, sometimes the easiest to see online on how that works. But also the 8 teams in it. We'll go game by game after that. It's Coastal Carolina, Arizona, Oregon State, Louisville, UCLA, Murray State, the big sleeper, Arkansas, and then the Blue Blood in LSU. We'll start off with the first game that we'll see. It's actually the first game that will happen in the College World Series on Friday at 1 p.m., probably Eastern time, Coastal Carolina versus Arizona. In this best-of-1 series, I guess you could call it winner-take-all, even though it's not really a winner-take-all. Who do you think moves on from this game?
I think that the bracket has pretty much got it right over here. I'm going with Coastal. Arizona's had a great offense, but Coastal just completely shut down Auburn at their place. And at first, I kind of wasn't as shocked. I like Coastal a lot. They're a great team that's been here before. But when you take a step back and think about how they've just been dominating everybody this tournament, I can't pick against them yet.
An interesting matchup here because Coastal Carolina and Arizona are 2 very different rosters. When you look at Coastal Carolina's pitching staff, whether it's Jacob Morrison, Riley Eichhoff, Cameron Fluke, or Ryan Lynch, they got a ton of different guys that can dominate on the mound, but they don't have a single hitter with an OPS over 1,000. On the other side, Arizona, the pitching's been a struggle all over the place except for their closer, Tony Pluta, but they're hitting. Brendan Summerhill, maybe not the greatest season that we've expected from the guy who's the top prospect out of this group, but he's been a stud, still hitting .358, but only 4 home runs. Mason White has an OPS over 1.1. Aaron Walton has 14 homers, 18 stolen bases. So I'm going to go ahead and pick Arizona to get this first win in the first game that we see. Next game, Oregon State versus Louisville. The losers of these 2 games will be the game that we'll talk about next after this. So who do you have winning Oregon State versus Louisville?
I have a similar mindset and strategy for my picks on bracket side number 1. We'll call it. We don't really have East and West. They're all in Omaha, but I'm going to take the Cardinals in this one. I really like their pitching staff. We saw Oregon State, and Louisville doesn't have Jamie Arnold per se, but we've seen Oregon State get shut out a few times. Louisville, not really. They had to throw their 4-starter out there in Game 7 of the first round, and he looked amazing. So I'm going to take Louisville's depth to get them in Game 1 because they'll probably face off again.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Louisville as well, too. Another intriguing matchup here. Patrick Forbes probably going to be the guy on the mound for Louisville. He's ranked 36th on Pipeline's draft prospects right now. He has 107 Ks and 66 innings pitched. This bullpen for Louisville as well, too, has been pretty good throughout the season, but their offense is just off the charts. Starting off with Eddie King Jr., who's hitting .362, OPS over 1,200, has 17 homers. Jake Monroe, .345, OPS over 1,000, 12 homers. And then they just have this ridiculous stolen base trio. Lucas Moore, who is a sophomore, hitting .353, 5 homers, but 51 out of 52 on stolen bases this year. Zion Rose and Alex Alicia also have over 30 stolen bases this year. I think they just make it impossible for this Oregon State pitching staff to have quick and easy innings. And when you're in a place like Omaha, quick innings turn into tough innings really quick. So I'm going to go with Louisville winning this game, setting up an Oregon State versus Coastal Carolina elimination game on Sunday, actually.
Okay.
How does that elimination game play out between these two losers for you?
Yeah, Arizona, Oregon State for me, two former rivals. I am going to love this game if it happens either way, but I can't have Oregon State losing early right now. It's a really deep team. I think they, like we mentioned earlier, pitching's a little deeper than Arizona. Maybe a tougher schedule too. They had to go out of conference, they're not in a big conference anymore. It's just them and Wazoo. I'm going to take Oregon State to move on to one more round at least.
Yeah, in this elimination game, I got Oregon State versus Coastal Carolina. I think the pitching works really well for Oregon State here, even though Coastal Carolina also is going to be throwing one of their good guys because Oregon State's got two guys that they trust, whether it's Ethan Kleinschmidt or Dax Whitney. But the hitting for Oregon State is better and probably playing maybe a bit better competition as well, too, led by Avi Arquette, who's number 6 on Pipeline's draft prospects right now. Can't forget about Gavin Turley. Can't forget about the senior Wilson Weber, the catcher, who's hitting .333 this year. So I'm going to go Oregon State staying alive in this game. Moving on to the next round, I guess. On the other half of the bracket, there is UCLA versus Murray State. I guess you could call this a blue blood versus the opposite of a blue blood, the underdog, the Cinderella, whatever you want to call it. How does UCLA versus Murray State play out?
It's really hard to compare these teams. Neither of them had really the toughest regionals they had to go through. Murray State got to go play Duke in theirs. So I'm going to stand pat here with UCLA. I don't know much about any draft eligible players on this team. I haven't heard a lot, but they've been scoring a bunch of runs. That's for sure.
Yeah, definitely another interesting matchup here. Both teams, the pitching isn't really crazy. I don't think we're going to be looking at like a 1-2 game or anything like that. But something that I look at when I see the Murray State team is they got some interesting hitters. Dom Decker, Dustin Mercer, two guys that don't have a homer this year, both hitting over 350, and just kind of the slap hitters that find their way on base. Could be pests. But I don't think it's going to be a problem for UCLA when they got the guy Rock Tulowitzki, the sophomore, hitting .367 this year, OPS over 1,200 with 23 homers, along with other sophomores Roman Martin and Mulavai Lavu.
Okay.
These guys hit, man. So I'm going to go with UCLA holding a win here over Murray State. Last matchup in the first round is perhaps the most fun matchup in the first round. Arkansas versus LSU, two SEC teams. How does this matchup play out? Yeah,
this should be possibly the most electric matchup that we get in all of Omaha. And it's crazy they're playing each other in the first round. But Arkansas said such a massive statement against Tennessee this past weekend. I'm not going to pick against them. LSU, we saw them struggle against Little Rock, even lose one of those games. So for that reason, I'm going to go with Arkansas and Zach Root to get the job done.
Yeah, fun matchup here. I know I've said that for pretty much every single one. Zach Root probably on the mound for Arkansas versus probably Cade Anderson, I'd imagine, for the LSU Tigers, who's number 3 right now on Pipeline's draft prospects. Both these lineups, probably the best two lineups in the entire College World Series. When you look at Arkansas, Logan Maxwell, Charles Donovan, or Dalavan, Cam Cozile, Ryder Helfrich, Brent Iredale, and then the Aloy brothers all have at least 13 homers this year. It's probably the deepest lineup in all of the tournament. But when you compare it to LSU's lineup with Derek Curiel, the best freshman in the country, Jared Jones, Stephen Milam, it doesn't stack up when you got to face Cade Anderson. So I'm going to go with LSU pulling the victory here, meaning it's going to be Arkansas versus Murray State for a elimination game in Monday afternoon, it looks like for me.
Yeah. So on my side, the elimination game is going to be LSU against Murray State, and LSU is probably going to beat them like 18-3. again, just because I got Arkansas winning one game doesn't mean LSU's done. Their lineup is ridiculous. Their 8-hitter catcher, Hernandez, I think, hit the furthest ball I've seen this entire tournament so far, and he's their 8-hitter. So they're going to be fine.
I have Arkansas versus Murray State, and I think it's going to be a similar thing here with Arkansas. They steamroll Murray State. Cool Cinderella story for them, but just not going to be enough when it comes down to it against a big SEC dog. That takes us into the second round of the tournament. I have Arizona versus Louisville in my winner bracket, and then the loser of that game would play Oregon State. How do you have your winners bracket looking right now?
I have Coastal playing Louisville. The loser of that one will play Oregon State.
Gotcha. How does that first game look like?
Another really great game, but despite Coastal's issues on offense, they're pretty comparable to Louisville's lineup. I think Coastal wins another one.
And then against Oregon State, so it'd be Coastal versus Louisville here.
Winner of Oregon State and Louisville. Yeah, exactly. So I hinted at earlier, I'm not going to knock out Oregon State yet. It's a much deeper team. Louisville has some guys that throw absolute cheese out of the bullpen, but Oregon State scores more runs than them. It's simple as that sometimes.
My game in the winner's bracket is Arizona versus Louisville. I have Louisville getting the win here. I just think there's more depth in the bullpen and on the starter side for Louisville. And then that means Arizona versus Oregon State. And I have Oregon State making their way out of the loser's bracket here, even though they'd still be in it in the long run. But taking out Arizona here and moving on to the next stage, which would be set up Louisville versus Oregon State in the final part of that bracket.
Okay.
On the other half, I have UCLA versus LSU. You have UCLA versus Arkansas.
Yep.
And UCLA in the losers bracket for you, Arkansas in the losers bracket for me. How does that little section play out in your
So I guess that Arkansas LSU matchup is going to be so big. The winner of that would have to have all the momentum in this entire tournament. So I will have Arkansas beating UCLA, and that sets up UCLA LSU, which would be crazy. But LSU's got a couple of pitchers of their own. UCLA hasn't really been tested, and I hate to do that with another California team, but I think that we're going to get Arkansas LSU again.
Yeah, UCLA versus LSU. This is the blue blood of blue blood going up against each other for me. I have LSU winning. If it's not Kid Anderson on the mound, Anthony Everson is probably going to be the next guy, and he's been dominant this year. 142 strikeouts and 98 innings pitched this year. That compares better against anybody that UCLA wants to throw. So I have LSU getting the victory here, and then matching up against Arkansas in this elimination game, UCLA versus Ark. I got Arkansas getting a victory here, which would set up an LSU versus Arkansas again matchup in the final part of this bracket. So back to bracket one. This is a weird scenario because you're going to have a team that has no losses versus a team that has one loss. So very beneficial scenario if you have not lost yet, because you would need to lose 2 games instead of just winning 1. Who are those teams in bracket 1, and who is coming out of that?
Yeah, this one's going to be Coastal against Oregon State. I had Coastal beating them the first time they played, so Oregon would have to beat them twice, of course. I'll say this does go to 3 games, and I'm going to go with Coastal. I like the way they played in their tournament. They beat Southern Miss up pretty good, a team that even hosted their own regional this year. They didn't make it this far, but for those reasons, I'm going to go with Coastal. I think Oregon State is due for a down year. And Omaha is not a down year, of course, for most schools, but I don't have them going to the championship.
Bracket 1, I got Louisville versus Oregon State. Louisville is a team that's undefeated. Oregon State's got 1 loss. It'd be ace versus ace in that first game, most likely, because we're 6 days removed from that first game that both these teams played. And I think that gives a huge edge to Louisville here. I have them getting the W in the first game and moving on to the championship best-of-3 series.
Okay.
And then in bracket 2, LSU versus Ark, I believe we're just a bit flip flopped here. You have Arkansas with no losses. I have Louisville, or not Louisville, Louisiana with no losses. How does this play out for you, and who's the second team that gets into the championship?
This should be awesome. Another series. I will predict it to go to 3 games. I will, but it was something about LSU struggling against Little Rock that is preventing me from picking them to win 2 out of 3. So I'm going to stick with the Arkansas pick. This should be an awesome series, and I think this will tell us a lot about the draft, specifically the Anderson versus Root games, if we do get multiple. But I am going to stick with the Razorbacks.
I'm going to go LSU here. I think they get it done the first game with Kid Anderson. Don't even have to push it to a game 2, which would set up an LSU versus Louisville final for me. How does your final play out, Skyler?
Yeah, I got Coastal and Arkansas. Should be awesome. It seems like the SEC has kind of just rolled over everybody this season. So I am going to stick with Arkansas in this one. I will be rooting for Coastal, though. Coastal, they obviously don't play on the West Coast, but it's one of those teams kind of like Dallas Baptist that doesn't really do well outside of baseball. So I'm always rooting for them. They're kind of like another Boise State for me, where they have that one sport that they dominate in, and I'll be rooting for them. But speaking of Root, that's going to be the MVP of the tournament, Zach Root.
Yeah, my final, I got LSU versus Louisville. I think it's an interesting matchup in the first couple of games before you get back to the Aces. But when Kid Anderson can get the ball and some short rest, maybe in game 3, I think that's going to be enough for LSU to get the win. So I have them winning in 3 games over Louisville. The blue blood of the 2020s, LSU comes back and gets another ring.
Definitely stacked enough for that run. Arkansas LSU is going to be awesome.
The last thing, or not the last thing, but the next thing we got in this episode is we're doing something that we did exactly a year ago from today, and that is which current MLB players will be in the Hall of Fame. Some things have changed, some things have not changed as well, too. So we'll go team by team, starting with the teams in the AL East as we go from there, and see which players will be in the Hall of Fame. Starting off with Baltimore, do you got any players from Baltimore that can make it in?
So how I'm going to structure this is I got a couple different categories. We have these guys are getting in right now. We have the guys that are on pace. Maybe they just need to finish out the career with their 162 averages. We have the guys that will be on the ballot. It just determines how do we view these numbers in 10 years from now when they are there, and the young stars that we got to keep our eye on. So with Baltimore, there are a couple of young stars on this team. It's the trio of Holiday, Henderson, and Rushman. These guys started so young, they realistically could recover from a down year, get back on Hall of Fame pace. Not going to be pushing those guys too hard, though.
On my Baltimore ballot, there's 3 guys I looked at. It's Adley, Gunnar, and Jackson Holiday. I think we've gotten to the point where Adley Rutschman's offense has fallen off a little bit too hard for me to be considering him on a current Cooperstown path. So I took him off, and I think last year I had him as a yes. Jackson Holiday, still super young and would need a big jump, but him coming up so early definitely helps his case. Just as of right now, I don't think we're going to get that type of player that we originally expected with him as the number 1 prospect just a year ago. But the one guy I do have as a yes is Gunnar Henderson. He's not even 24 and has 18.1 career WAR. He just posted a 9-point WAR season in his second full season as a big leaguer. He's a guy that can post, 6 to 8 WAR seasons for the next 10 years because of how good his defense is as well, too. That's going to be something that's always just ticking up for him. So I have Gunnar Henderson as a yes. I think he's got the best chance out of anybody on Baltimore. Moving to Boston, or shipping up to Boston. That's a fun way to say it.
Yeah.
Couple of guys on this team, veterans and maybe some youngsters as well too. How does this play out for you?
Yeah, a lot more fun of a conversation, that's for sure, because there's a couple guys that are already on pace into their 30s. That's Rafi Devers and Bregman, both having great seasons. Another guy that will get on the ballot, but it's going to be a weird conversation for off-the-field stuff, will be Aroldis Chapman, one of the best lefties we've ever seen. And then I'm going to add Garrett Crochet to the young star list, because so far he's only got about a year and a half as a starter and basically no slip-ups whatsoever ever since he's been in that role. And a lot of young guys, but they just haven't played that much, so I didn't include them.
Yeah. I got 4 guys to talk about, the first of which is Aroldis Chapman. I'm going to go ahead and say yes for him because of how he's found a way to remain effective into his late 30s. He's 36, 37 years old now. I'm already a 7-time All-Star, a 2-time World Series champ, which I think helps a lot, and a reliever of the year also. Plus, he threw 106 miles per hour. That adds some value to your thing. Just the it factor, being the best reliever at a time in baseball, and he was that. So I think Aroldis Chapman will get in. The next guy I have is Alex Bregman. Obviously, we don't know how the 2017 Astros are going to be treated yet, so we can't really make an assumption on if it's a yes, if it's a no. They all get in, they all don't get in. But Bregman, as of right now, 42.64 at age 31, is in a great spot. He's having his best season of his last 5 years or so as well, too, with the Red Sox. Could be geared towards another payday, a longer contract, likely means more years playing. He's already a 2-time All-Star, 2-time World Series champ, and a Gold Glover and a Silver Slugger with 2 top 5 MVP finishes in 2018 and 2019. So I do think Alex Bregman is a guy that can approach 60 to 70 WAR and get in that way. Rafael Devers is the other super interesting one as well, too. He's signed through 2033. He's 28 years old right now, has already accumulated 25 WAR in his career, 214 home runs. It looks like he's a guy that could approach 500 in his career. He's a World Series champ back in 2018. He's a 3-time All-Star, 2-time Silver Slugger. So I'm going to go ahead and say yes for Rafael Devers. And then obviously all the young guys. The one guy I do think that has the chance to make it just because of the Mike Trout buildup is Roman Anthony. He's so young right now. And I just said yes because why not? Good chance he doesn't. Good chance something could go wrong. But if you're taking a young bet, this is the guy that you want to take a young bet on. Roman Anthony's been a stud all the way through the minors and looks, even though he didn't tally a hit yesterday in his major league debut, he just looked prepared at the plate, and that's not something you see from a lot of 21-year-olds. On to the Yankees, perhaps the team that has the most names out of anybody. Who are the guys that get in? Who are the guys that just miss, Skyler?
Yeah, I think 2 first ballot guys. We can comfortably say that Aaron Judge and Paul Goldschmidt will be in the Hall of Fame someday, so I won't go into them too much. A couple of other pitchers I think are right there, right on pace. We'll start with Garrett Cole. He would get my vote because for about a 5-year stretch, he was the most dominant pitcher we'd seen. And it, almost reminds me of what Skeens is doing right now. Another guy, Max Fried, doesn't quite get the hype, but the numbers are right there with a guy like Garrett Cole. We'll see. Maybe if he grabs a Cy Young in the next couple of years, it'll elevate his stance there. And a guy who will be on the ballot is Giancarlo Stanton. We'll see how we look at home run hitters. And another one of those situations, in 10 years from now, who are the other guys going to be on the ballot with them? If it's him and Nelson Cruz and guys like that, then Stanton gets the edge. If it's not, if we're still debating Barry Bonds BS, then maybe Giancarlo doesn't get in.
Yeah, there's a bunch of different names on here. I'm going to start with the guys that I say no. First guy, I don't like saying it, but Giancarlo Stanton, I do think he becomes very close. And I think last year at this point, I was saying yes. And even in the playoffs last year, I was saying yes. But with him being hurt, missing the first 60 games plus of the season, being 35 years old, the contract expiring in a couple of years, I think there's a good chance we don't see him get to 500 homers. And you'll see this with the multitude of guys that we'll talk about throughout this episode. The single MVP outfielders are always a very interesting situation when you peak super highly and then kind of have that bit of a decline. There's 4 guys on my mind that I'm thinking about when I say this. There's actually another one I'll talk about here in a second, but Giancarlo is one of them. I do think he just becomes just short of 50 WAR, doesn't get to 500 homers, and just misses out on the Hall of Fame. The next guy, same situation, Cody Bellinger, single-time MVP, just hasn't been that MVP for him outside of that single season in the entirety of his career. He does have a Rookie of the Year, 2-time All-Star, 2020 World Series is what it is. Gold Glover, Silver Slugger, NLCS MVP. But he's only got 1 season over 5 WAR in his career, and something that the Hall of Fame has always valued is being great for a long, sustained period of time. And Cody Bellinger can really only say he's been great for 1 year in the MLB. So I say no. but it's close for him. Once we get to, the end of his career, two other guys I have first of which, kind of a weird spot, but I do think it's warrant to talk about is Anthony Volpe. He's only 24 right now, 8.5 WAR. Isn't anything crazy, but he projects to be a guy that's slightly above average offensively with plus defense throughout the entirety of his career. You're looking at 4 to 5 WAR seasons for 15 years. That's 50. That's 65 WAR. Like, he's got a case for that. I just don't know how the long term projects, so I'm going to say no for that. But if he becomes an 800 OPS guy, then I think we're looking at a legit conversation with him. He's going to have the counting stats being up with the Yankees at age 21, and he's also the shortstop for the New York Yankees. That in itself is a big thing. Last guy that I have is Max Fried. I think his is super, super close. He's got a fun resume as well, too. 2-time All-Star, 2021 World Series champ, 3 times Gold Glover, and also a Silver Slugger. He's signed through 2032, which I think helps his case. I just don't know about the health. That's the biggest thing for him. At age 31, 26.8 WAR is good. With his contract, it looks like he could project to like 45 to 50. I just think we might see a year or two where Tommy John can affect him or something like that, and that could throw everything off. On the other side of that coin is Garrett Cole. I mean, he's a guy I have as yes. At 43.2 WAR at age 34, he signed through 2028. He's got a Cy Young, 6 All-Star appearances, 2 ERA titles, and we all know the one Cy Young isn't really saying how good Garrett Cole was. Top 5 finishes in Cy Young in 2015, 2018, 2019, 2020, and 2021. You can make a case for him deserving that Cy Young in 2018, 2019 as well, too. So I think he does get in. The next guy, Paul Goldschmidt, I definitely also think gets in. 64.2 WAR, an MVP, 7 All-Stars, 4 Gold Glovers, 5 Silver Sluggers, 369 homers, over 2,000 hits. And perhaps the most interesting thing with Paul Goldschmidt's case is 175 stolen bases as well, too. The last guy I'll mention is a Hall of Fame anomaly, Aaron Judge, 57.8 WAR at age 33. I say he's an anomaly because it's so rare for a position player to get into the Hall of Fame when you don't have your first plus WAR season until you're age 25. And obviously we're seeing one of the greatest peaks of all time from Aaron Judge right now, 2-time MVP of Rookie of the Year, 6-time All-Star, 4-time Silver Slugger, 338 career homers, and he could approach 500, it feels like, this year. So Aaron Judge is a yes. Paul Goldschmidt's a yes. And Garrett Cole is a yes from the Yankees.
Pretty much.
Anybody from the Rays? Yeah.
Tampa Bay. Oh, brother. I think we can start entertaining Junior Caminero. He's starting to become the team captain, but there's just not a whole lot of ABs with the guys in Tampa. I decided not to give a yes to anybody.
Yeah, Caminero is the one guy I have to talk about. I said it's fun, but no, he's 21. We just don't know yet. The numbers are, maybe big moment cool, but not overall look cool right now. What about Toronto?
Toronto's interesting one because we got Max Scherzer just signing there. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer, won 100%. I don't need to get into that, I guess. But the one other guy I'll say is on pace is Vladimir Guerrero Jr. He has unlimited, untapped potential. Will he be able to hit for power his whole career? Right now, for that reason, I'm going to say he doesn't get in, but I think he's definitely on pace if he can get it going. And I didn't include anybody else.
Max Scherzer, first guy, first ballot. Of course, 75 WAR in his career, 3-time Cy Young, definitely gets in. Vladdy Jr., I do have getting in. He's 26 right now, has accumulated 23.1 WAR, but 973 hits already at age 26. Even if the power doesn't, get a 50 homer season or whatever what we were originally expecting with him, he's going to be a guy that approaches, 400 even without crazy power numbers because of how early he came up. He's a guy who is one of the most pure bats in the league. I think we're looking at one of our best candidates to get to 3,000 hits of any current player right now. He's also a Gold Glover, Silver Slugger twice, 4-time All-Star. Probably will get to 10 All-Star games in his career. Even if he doesn't have an MVP, I do think he'll get to about 60 WAR, close to 3,000 hits, 400 homers. I'll go Vladdy Jr. with the yes.
Best case
Two
scenario,
guys.
right-handed Votto. That's what I see.
Yeah, that's fair. Maybe a bit less defense, but I can see that for sure. Two other guys kind of want to talk about. I don't have him getting in. Bo Bichette was on pace 2 years ago.
Yep.
Now he just can't hit the bat or can't hit the ball with the bat. We'll end up with solid counting stats, though, probably over 2,000 hits, stuff like that. And then George Springer, fun career, just had a shitty start to his first 4 years in Toronto. He's having a good year this year for them, but
all very good.
If he posted, 4 WAR, 5 WAR seasons over the last 3 or 4 years, we're looking at a guy who's approaching 60 WAR at age 35, and be like, yeah, he's getting in. Also, World Series champ as well too, World Series MVP, I believe, as well. But no, at this point. Chicago, I'm not even gonna talk about them. We'll move on to Cleveland, who's got a few guys that are kind of interesting.
Yeah, Jose Ramirez is definitely first ballot Hall of Famer in my eyes. We're closing in on 300 homers, 300 stolen bases. Just one of those guys, right? You come up, you mash, and then you have the sophomore slump, and most of them can't figure it out. J-Ram came back year 3, even better, unstoppable. So happy about him. Will get on the ballot. I have 2 interesting ones. Emmanuel Clase seems like a guy who could pitch forever. I know, knock on wood, with everybody's getting injured these days, but that's an interesting one when we talk about counting stats. He's finally figured it out, having a better season. And then I have Stephen Kwan, if he gets to 2,000 hits, will be on the ballot for sure, even though he may not play forever.
First one, I got 3 guys I want to talk about. I don't have Kwan on here just because he came up a little bit too old, and I think it could be a little bit interesting with the guy that's pretty strictly contact. First guy I want to talk about is Carlos Santana. I have but it's a fun case. Okay. He's close to 40 right now, or maybe even is 40, 39.6 career WAR, 331 career homers. Is he valued as a catcher, even though he didn't really catch the last 5, 6, 7, 10 years in his career, maybe? But he's a fun bat who's found a way to stay relevant for a long time, and only a single-time All-Star, but his counting stats are pretty fun. I think he's a great candidate for the Hall of Good. Who knows there? Next one is Jose Ramirez. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. 54.8 WAR right now at age 32, 6-time All-Star, 6-time Silver Slugger. Another guy who's probably not going to win the MVP, but just the perennial greatness that he's got. Going to get to 2,000 hits, going to get to 300 homers, 300 stolen bases. Could even get to 2,500 hits, 400 homers, 400 stolen bases if he wants to. And then the last guy, Emmanuel Clase. Let's just take a look at the numbers first. Yep. 11.6 WAR at age 27, 3-time All-Star, 2-time reliever of the year, 172 saves. Screams yes. But he was suspended for PEDs in 2020. And as we know, if you got suspended for it, you just don't get in. So I'd say yes, but if you PEDs, you can't. So I guess it's a no for a Class A. But I wonder how much he's regretting that decision to the juice or whatever he did. I don't even know what his story is. Could have been like taking energy drinks or whatever. But he's a no for me now.
Yeah.
On to Detroit.
So basically I just copy and pasted the order from when we did it last time. I think it was the standings at that time last year. So I'm losing Detroit. There they are. Okay. We got one man who is definitely on pace, Tarek Skubal. That's for sure. One of the most dominant lefties of this era, of maybe even of the century. And I didn't edit much on Detroit. A couple guys, Torkelson and Green, got a really young start, but this is definitely a Skubal piece for sure when we talk about Detroit.
Yeah, I think Skubal's really the only guy that has a chance in my eyes. 14.64 age 28, but he's the best pitcher on the planet, perhaps. He was a Cy Young last year, got the Triple Crown last year, and he's maybe going for back-to-back this year. When you win back-to-back Cy Youngs, is a rare, group that you get to be a part of, and you look at those guys, most of them are in the Hall of Fame. So if you have that elevated peak like Tariq Skubal has had, even if you battled injuries at parts of your career, I think he's good enough to get in. On to Kansas City, who's got a few guys that are some interesting cases.
Yeah, we'll start off with Salvador Perez because he's definitely getting on the ballot. After that, when you start comparing him to Joe Mauer and Buster Posey, I would say absolutely he's a Hall of Famer. I just think maybe the defense has some people hesitant, but he's definitely got the counting stats, really clutch playoff moments. That's what it's about for me. And we got to mention Bobby Witt Jr., another guy that's going to accumulate so much WAR over the next couple of seasons that it's going to be hard to deny him. So definitely on the list of someone to be on pace for the Hall of Fame.
I'll start with Salvi as well, too. I think he's one of the most interesting cases in the big leagues right now. Partially because of the Gold Gloves. He's got 5 Gold Gloves, but he was really the last guy before the big analytical curve for fielding, and turns out his defense actually was not that good. So how do those Gold Gloves get graded? I don't know. Regardless, he's got a 33.9 WAR at age 35. He's got 9 All-Stars. He's got a 2015 World Series with the MVP of that series, 5 Silver Sluggers, 1,600 hits, going to be close to 300 homers as well, too. So, yes, I don't know. He's one of the most interesting cases out of anybody in the league right now. But if I had to pick, I would say yes for him. Next guy, Bobby Witt Jr., perhaps the hottest start you can be on. 18.0 WAR at age 24. He's got an All-Star. He's got a Gold Glove. He's got a Silver Slugger and a batting title. If there's anybody that's on the Mike Trout pace, and you could say that is a no doubt Hall of Famer at age 24, Bobby Witt's probably the most sure guess that you can make. Other guy, Jack Caglione, who knows? Maybe he could. He seems to be hitting the ball hard, but he's played like 3 or 4 games at this point.
Yeah.
On to Minnesota.
There's a couple guys on the bubble here, and a couple of guys I had to leave off. So we'll jump right to the guys that will be on the ballot here. 2 guys right now in Minnesota, Carlos Correa, Byron Buxton. Right now, it's a no for me. It's a no. Correa, not even to mention the Houston stuff. The injuries have been so brutal. He's not going to end up with enough counting stats to get in compared to some of the other shortstops. Same with Byron Buxton. It's the same story. When these guys end up on the ballot, which they will someday, it's going to be a David Wright, Carl Crawford type of situation, which is unfortunate. And the pitchers, same thing. So many injuries, they don't have the innings to be considered.
Yeah, the one guy I do want to talk about is Carlos Correa. He's got 44.9 WAR at age 30, which I feel like he's in a good spot. Obviously, we know the injuries is one thing. But if you were to tell us, when Carlos Correa was coming up, that this is what he was, I think we both kind of look at him and be like, really? We expected this guy to be an MVP level player. Well, he's been an All-Star multiple times, has had some big moments, a World Series title back in 2017 as well, too. I don't know. I have him borderline yes right now. It just depends how those 2017 Astros get treated. If they get treated poorly, I think he's on the out. If they get treated as if, one is one, then I think he does have a chance to get in because I do think he'll get close to 65 to 70 WAR in his career. How about the A's?
I wanted to shout out Jacob Wilson because what he's doing is kind of changing everything we thought we knew about analytics. So that's going to be a really interesting case if he is able to have a long career. Outside of that, I'm not going to jinx it. That's the only name I'll say.
Yeah, Jacob Wilson is a guy to mention. One of the more interesting, super early 3,000 hit cases that we can have because of his batted ball profile. But too early to really say anything. Mason Miller as well, too. Could be a guy that if he was on a team that allowed him to get 40, 50 saves a year, could be in a spot. But as of right now, it looks like might be gearing more towards 30. And those 10 per year definitely matter when you add them up. On to Houston. That's got a bunch of interesting names here.
Yeah, Altuve is going to be questioned for his entire career. He was on the championship team, the first one in 17. But I think he's a yes because I've never seen anyone at his size hit the ball as great and as long as he has. So I definitely would do it. Also, there's clips out there, man. Foolish baseball, like the trash can bangs, and Altuve steps out of the box and he's like, "Don't fucking do that again." I don't want that. So I kind of don't think he was a part of it. Either way, we have Josh Hader too. I think is a lock. After Aroldis Chapman had his issues, Hader steps in as the go-to left-handed pitcher in Major League Baseball. One more guy to keep an eye on. Yordan Alvarez was on pace. He broke his hand and hasn't been hitting with power, so that's been a tough one to analyze. But he's definitely someone to watch out for.
I'll start with Altuve. If anybody makes it in from this Astros group, it's going to be Altuve. 52.2 WAR at age 35, an MVP, 9 All-Stars, 2 World Series championships, a Gold Glove, 7 Silver Sluggers, 3 batting titles. He's got the accolades. He's got the longevity to get in. So I think he's a yes. Josh Hader, 216 saves at age 31, 5-time All-Star, 3-time reliever of the year. I think he's about as good as a left-handed reliever we've seen in our lifetime, or baseball seen in its lifetime as well too. So I think he'll get in. A guy that I wish could make it, but I don't think he will, is Framber Valdez. He's like a lefty Logan Webb. He's so fun to watch in the way that he pitches and the way that he goes about his business, but came up a little bit too late. But the last 3-4 year stretch that he's on has been really fun to watch. And the 2 guys I have as a yes. I'll start off with Yordan Alvarez, 23.2 WAR at age 27, Rookie of the Year, 3-time All-Star, 2022 World Series champ, and the Silver Slugger as well too. 167 homers at age 27 is in a good spot. We know when he's playing well, he is a 1,000 OPS guy with 40 homers. I think he'll get back to that at some point. As of right now, I do think he's got a good chance to get in. And then the last guy is Jeremy Pena. He's in an interesting spot. He's also 27, 16.8 WAR, 2022 World Series champ, World Series MVP, ALCS MVP, and a Gold Glover as well too. And he's playing at a rate this season where he could be a guy that has an 8 WAR year this year. And when you do that as a shortstop, he's already won a World Series, already won a World Series MVP. You're like, oh shit, like this is the guy that could approach 50, 60 WAR and have the accolades to go along with it as well too. So I'll say yes for Jeremy Pena, even though it's super early still, and a lot of things can go wrong, same as Yordan Alvarez.
I figured you'd have Jeremy Pena. I recognized it, but it's a no for me. I don't think he's quite at a Corey Seager level of shortstop hitting.
That's fair.
Which we'll get to soon here, I'm sure.
On to the Angels, who got a couple vets.
Yeah, Mike Trout is a first ballot Hall of Famer. I wish that things played out a little differently. It's nice that we haven't really had to worry about the Angels in about 10 seasons as an A's fan. But as a Mike Trout fan, it hurts a lot, right? If this is the worst case scenario for Mike Trout's career and he still ended up a Hall of Famer, imagine what he could have done. Also, they have Kenley Jansen, who will be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, 2 first ballot guys, Kenley and Mike Trout for sure. Don't really need to go into much detail with them. They'll get in on their first ballot. On to Seattle.
Seattle's another interesting one. I ended up writing down a bunch of names that are going to end up being those, but it's going to be a fun conversation when we get there. Julio Rodriguez, another guy, such a early start for a center fielder, a position that accumulates a lot of WAR just like shortstop. So even though it's a no for me for back-to-back years here of doing it, we have to keep him on pace because that's the way it is. Cal Raleigh, on the other hand, completely flips the script here. We don't see catchers hit for this much power usually, so he could get himself into Salvador Perez range. Plus, he's got elite defensive metrics, so that could help him out. On to the next category. It's will get on the ballot, I think. 2 pitchers, Luis Castillo, Logan Gilbert. I don't think they end up with enough innings, but at the end of the day, man, these guys' career ERA totals are going to be super low. And then a third guy, because of the accolades. We got Randy Arozarena. I feel like he's going to be a guy that ends up on the ballot. We go, oh yeah, he was really good in the World Baseball Classic, and he was extremely good in the playoff run for Tampa.
I'll start with three names, three pitchers: Luis Castillo, Logan Gilbert, George Kirby. All have had some fun seasons in their career. I just think it started a little bit too late, or wasn't good enough to be that top line guy, or got hurt a couple times, which hurts your case as well too. So I left those three guys off. Cal Raleigh is a fun one because he's a platinum glover and is having one of the best catcher seasons that we've seen in the entirety of MLB history. He's got 14.9 WAR at age 28 right now with 119 homers. If he gets to 300, if he gets to 40, 45 WAR, if he's got a platinum glove and Silver Slugger and all these other accolades to go with it in the end of his career, I think we're looking at a guy that's got a decent chance. And then Julio. I know the bat's been so frustrating as a Julio fan to watch, but 19 WAR at age 24 is an incredible pace. He's a Rookie of the Year, two-time All-Star, two-time Silver Slugger. I think what we're looking at right now, we'll probably get to a guy who's got 70 to 80 WAR when his career's done with how long he's locked up for. So I will say yes for Julio Rodriguez. He does get in to the Hall of Fame. Last team in the American League with the Texas Rangers.
So off the top of the bat here, I don't know why I said that. To start things off for the Rangers, there are two guys I think are absolutely Hall of Famers. That's Corey Seager and Jacob deGrom. They did so much for baseball in the 2010s. deGrom, one of the filthiest pitcher stretches in all of baseball history, and basically started the all the Paul Skeens memes we see now of 7 innings, 1 hit with a loss. That was deGrom for years in the Mets. And then Corey Seager, just a ridiculous postseason hitter. I mean, that guy always came out when the lights were the brightest. Another guy who's interesting that we both love, I have Marcus Semien in the on pace section. I think he's a little bit above ballot because he's going to be on the ballot. It's just going to be a really interesting conversation that comes down to that last year, that 10th year possibly. Sometimes he was great at defense, sometimes he wasn't. Sometimes he was MVP candidate. Other times he was one of the worst players that was qualified. So just a really wacky career for Semien. I lean yes, though. Nathan Eovaldi is a guy that will be on the ballot, just didn't have a dominant start in the first half of his career. And those are the Rangers guys I have.
Yeah, 4 guys I do want to mention. Jacob deGrom is a yes for me. I think his resurgence has helped him this year as well, too. He's probably going to get to 50 WAR in his career. He's got the, absolute peak that we've seen. And him, coming back and from surgery, whatever it may be, and being as good as he's been this year, I think really helps his case. Corey Seager as well, too. Counting stats are somewhat of a disappointment for him because he's battled a ton of injury in his career. But 2-time World Series MVP is not something that you see often in the MLB. 2-time World Series champ, of course, multiple-time All-Star. So I do think he gets in. Marcus Semien, like you said, an interesting case, 46.8 WAR right now at age 34. Should get to 2,000 hits, 300 homers, 3-time All-Star, World Series champ, a Gold Glover, Silver Slugger. And he's doing it at the two positions that are usually the worst offensively. Like you said, it could be a bit all over the place for him, but shortstop, second base, usually are the two positions outside of catcher that you can take a little bit off of the offense and still get in. And I think we saw that exactly last year when he posted a 4 WAR season with an OPS plus of 100. So, yeah. Last guy, Wyatt Langford. Good start, fun to watch. Could be a guy that has the ability to post a 10 WAR season in his career. We just haven't seen it yet. So, no comment on him right now. Now on to the NL side, starting off with one of the teams that has the most names, the Atlanta Braves.
All right, Atlanta. We'll start it off with Chris Sale. That's a slam dunk first ballot Hall of Famer, still dominant even this year. That's one of the ones I'm happiest about when we ranked our top 10 pitchers for the season, and I still had him at 7th. And everyone I told was like, what are you talking about, dude? He's 38, and he's still crushing it. Ronald Acuna is on pace, but things are definitely changing now. Maybe he tries to turn into more of a power hitter than the all-around Acuna we saw during his MVP season. The steals, definitely not going to be on that top 20 player all time list, like we saw. And then another guy, Matt Olson, he's going to be on the ballot. He's going to hit so many homers. Another guy had a couple down years, but right now he's still at about 15. And I decided to keep Spencer Strider on the young star list. It breaks my heart, but after the injury, the odds are against him. I had to take Michael Harris off, but I'm going to keep Strider on pace.
I'll start with two guys I do think get in. Chris Sale is the first. He's the first ballot, I think, in my opinion. Now, Triple Crown, 55 WAR at age 36, 8-time All-Star, 2018 World Series, a Gold Glover as well, 2 Cy Young his last year, of course. Ronald Acuna Jr., I do think is still a yes. 26.4 WAR at age 27 is really cool. He's got an MVP, Rookie of the Year, 4-time All-Star, 3-time Silver Slugger, 180 homers as well, too. And then a bunch of guys that I think just fall just short. And that's Spencer Strider, Matt Olson, Austin Riley, Ozzy Albies, and Marcell Ozuna as well, too, who's probably going to have some pretty good counting stats at the end of his career. On to Miami and off of Miami and into the Mets.
New York Mets. I think as of right now, they do have a slam dunk Hall of Famer, Francisco Lindor. We were getting a little worried end of Cleveland, beginning of the Mets contract. But last season, he was nearly an MVP. It just turned out there was a guy named Shohei Ohtani in his league, which is unfortunate. Still on pace. Guys, I would give the nod to Juan Soto. I mean, dude, this is the modern day Ted Williams, and it seems like he is back on track. I saw the other day he was 3 for 3 with 2 walks. That's just classic Juan Soto. Pete Alonso, one of the best rookie seasons we've ever seen. I think that kind of thing will keep you alive, get you some votes. So I'll say yeah. Another guy that's going to be on the ballot, we'll get some question marks. Edwin Diaz started off as maybe one of the craziest reliever beginning of the careers. It's a tough one to think about after the injury, but we'll see what happens to him. I left everyone else off. Remind me too if I forget like a veteran that's like an obvious one. Like I almost forgot.
I feel that. 2 guys, yes, for sure. Lindor and Soto for me. The pace that they're on right now should put them in first ballots by the time that their career is done. Juan Soto is now locked up for like 27 years or something like that. So he's a free agent in 2040. If he just posts like a 3 WAR season the next 15 years, you're looking at another 45 WAR. He's already at 40 right now. Yeah, I mean, that's a yes. Lindor, kind of same thing there. Edwin Diaz, I think, pulls just short. A bit of inconsistency throughout his career, I think, will cost him in the long run. And then Pete Alonso, I think, came up a little bit too late. And is a little bit too much of just a power hitter sometimes that will make it tough for him to get in. He will be a guy that's like 400, in between 400 to 500 homers probably when the career's done, but I think he's just short. So 2 yeses and 2 just shorts from the Mets. Now on to the Phils, who got a lot of names as well too.
Yeah, Bryce Harper for sure is going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. We won't get too much into that one. Another really interesting case that I've thought about a lot lately, but I don't think enough people are, that Zach Wheeler will also be in the Hall of Fame, no doubt about it. I saw I think it was a Foolish Baseball video. It's just he's a safe one to go to because he sticks to the numbers, so he's not going to have a lot of bias in there. But Zach Wheeler's probably the best pitcher of the decade, dude. Like ever since he came over to Philly, he's been unstoppable, really reliable, strikes out a lot of guys, goes deep into games. He is awesome, and he's a Hall of Famer. Then things get weird. There's this group of players that have all played together for a while. That's Trey Turner, Kyle Schwarber, JT Realmuto. I think all those guys are going to fall just short. Yeah,
an interesting team here. I'll start off with Aaron Nola, who is the counting stat god. Mm-hmm. But a 1-time All-Star in his career. I do think he falls short, but when we look at wins and stuff like that, he's going to be a guy that, oh, wow, he had 200 wins in his career. That's pretty crazy. Next up, Zach Wheeler is fun one as well, too. I do think he ends up getting in. He has no Cy Young in his career, but 3 top 6 appearances in his career, 37.9 WAR at age 35. Seems to be a guy that can work into his late 30s as well, too, pretty easily. Bryce Harper's the first ballot Hall of Famer. Trey Turner, I do think it's in as well too because of how long his fucking contract is. Signed through 2033. He's got 38.3 WAR right now, 1,400 hits, 178 homers, 296 stolen bases. Candidate for 300 homers, 500 stolen bases. That's not too common. Has a World Series ring in 2019 with I was going to say the Houston Nationals. That's not right. The Washington Nationals. 3-time All-Star as well, too. So I think he is a yes.
Yeah.
Real Muto, I think, falls just short. I think he's a fun name, though, when you look at it from a catcher perspective. And then a big, I don't know, the biggest three true outcome guy there is in baseball right now is Kyle Schwarber. Because he is going to approach 500 homers. And before, if you had 500 homers, you are a Hall of Famer. He's at 304 right now at age 32, but only a 17.4 WAR. So I don't really know. Because if he gets, 535 homers and plays the way that he does through age 40, but it's just a DH, like, what is he? Like, I honestly don't know. It'd be a fun story for him to get into the Hall of Fame as well, too, because of how his career started. The torn ACL and being a catcher and then not being a catcher and then June Kyle Schwarber, like all these different things with him. He's a fun aura player.
Yeah.
So I just don't know if he can get in even with 535 homers.
The homering in every single round, and then the World Baseball Classic rounds too. I get it.
Yeah. Moving on to Washington, maybe a youngster or two in here.
Yeah, I want to shout out James Wood. Same kind of category as Jacob Wilson. It's like, hold on a second. We may see something we haven't seen in a while here. But he's so young. We'll end the conversation right there. I love Dylan Cruz. Didn't really include him, though.
James Wood looks like he's off to a solid start. So I will say yes for him, even though it's super tentative. He's got MVP potential, which is super cool for a young outfielder. However, as we've seen in the past, just because you're a young outfielder that's got MVP potential, even if you win the MVP, doesn't mean you're going to be that way for a long time. As of right now, I'll say yes because he's fun, he's really damn good, and he's really young as well too. On to the Cubs.
Chicago Cubs. I think that Kyle Tucker is finally going to get that yes from me. When you're a guy in your mid-20s, it's hard to dissect exactly how you're going to translate. But so far, I like what I'm seeing a lot. I think you're going to have a lot of counting stats, a lot of hopefully accolades with this guy too, and that should be enough. We'll shout out Pete Crow Armstrong. If he's the best center fielder of his generation, that'll get him on a ballot. So we just got to wait and see.
We'll start off with Dansby. I do think he comes just short.
Yeah.
He's a fun case. He's definitely a ballot guy. He's got a World Series ring as well too. Some big hits in his career. I just do think he ends up being a bit short. Partially because of the contract he signed as well too. It's not a ridiculously long-term deal. Next up, Kyle Tucker. I think he's a yes as of right now. He's probably going to get an insane deal, 12, 13, 14 years this offseason as well too, which will take him into his 40s. When you got a contract out long and just post the numbers that he does, that should be a good one there. And then PCA. He's fun. He is, if his floor is just Kevin Kiermaier, like that works.
Yeah.
And what we're seeing right now, like he's a guy who's going to add offensive value as well too. If he's an 860 OPS guy for the rest of his career and plays the defense that he does, he's a for sure Hall of Famer. Like he's just a war machine at that point. So I'll say yes for PCA. I think he's got a good chance to get in with how young he is.
We'll need to have a couple of voters move on off of the ballot for him to get in, though, for sure.
That's fair. Now on to Cincinnati, who's got a couple youngsters that might be a little interesting.
Yeah, two guys that are some of the most exciting players in the game. Ellie, of course, and Hunter Green. I'm going to give them the no as of right now, but I'm not saying it's impossible. I just think these guys got to be a little more consistent first.
I'll start off with Hunter Green. I'll say no, just because of the injuries. He's only thrown 150 innings once in his career. I know this is only his fourth year, but need to see a bit more health from him. And then the other guy, Ellie De La Cruz, 300, like seems like a very easy chance to him. I just don't know how consistent he is
Got to
going to
stay
be
on the field.
That's a part. I don't think he's had a problem staying on the field in his case, but I just don't think he's had the greatest ability to hit the baseball. 18 strikeouts last year, but I don't know, man. Like he's obviously super young. He is only 23 right now and has 121 career stolen bases, 50 homers. Doesn't have a contract yet. And will have a contract that probably gives him a ridiculous amount of money at some point in his career. He's only 23. He's an all-star. I'll say yes with Ellie. But that's one I'm scared about. Even though I want him to do good, I just don't know how well his profile looks with the strikeout. On to the Milwaukee Brewers.
Here's another one of those guys you referenced to earlier, a one-time MVP winner, Christian Yelich. Unfortunately, as of right now, I'm going to say he gets on the ballot but doesn't get in. Just one of those things where he couldn't finish strong. It's not his fault, of course. It's insanely hard to keep that kind of progression going through your 30s, but Yelich is a guy who just hasn't really been able to do it. And we'll shout out Jackson Chourio, one of the youngest players to come up and dominate in recent memory. So, of course, he's going to be on pace.
Single-time MVP, Christian Yelich is another one of those guys that I was talking about. He needs healthy seasons as of right now, and that's just not what he's getting. So he's a no. William Contreras is a fun case. I honestly just don't know with him. And then Jackson Chourio, I think he's a yes. Even though I talked about him a couple of weeks ago as being a disappointment, he's so young, and he's one of the MLB's best 300 hit chances out of any active player right now. So out of any like 21, 22-year-old, I think he's got probably one of the brightest chances to make it. So I'll go yes with Chourio. On to the Pittsburgh Pirates.
Yeah, I think Andrew McCutchen is going to get in, no problem. We've seen some of the guys over the past few years. Maybe not Ichiro is the best comparison, of course, but Scott Rowland, McCutchen has an MVP. Some of those guys don't. McCutchen's getting in. And, of course, Paul Skeens. I think as of right now, everybody's got to say yes. I still have him in the on-pace role, not the first ballot section, of course. He's got to pitch a couple more games than that. But these are the two guys, and that basically sums up all of Pittsburgh baseball for the past 20 years.
Yeah, McCutchen's another one of those single MVP outfielders that is a bit of an interesting case. I think he's super close right now. He's right around 50 WAR. But he really hasn't been an all-star level player in 10 years. And that can hurt your case, I think, when it's just like, if you look at his OPS last 5 years, it's 757, 778, 700, 776, 739, 749. Like, those are above average numbers, but is that a Hall of Famer? I don't know. I really don't know. He does have that, 2011 to 2015 period with the Pirates where he posted 5.4 WAR, 6.9 WAR, 7.8 WAR with an MVP, 6.4 WAR, and then 4.9 WAR. But it's interesting with him. So I'll say super close. If he gets in, I do think there's a better chance for Bellinger, Yelich, guys like that. But if he doesn't, then I think it's tough for those other guys to get in. Paul Skeens, I'll say yes, because he's as big of a slam dunk as there is for a 22, 23-year-old right now. Just best pitcher on the planet. And he's so fucking young. Like, you can win a Cy Young this year, win a Cy Young next year, and then he's 24, and we're like, yep, like this guy's getting in. That's what we've seen, unless he turns into Tim Lincecum. But regardless, we're moving on to the Cardinals.
Yeah, Nolan Arenado's a slam dunk. He's one of the best players I've ever seen in person. So I won't talk about it too far there. I threw in another guy he will definitely be on the ballot. That's another guy we've seen pitch a lot in person, Sonny Gray. And the reason I included him is because he's kind of got got the perfect late 30s pitcher who sneaks in kind of resume. He's got 3 acts of his career. He's got the young superstar. He's got the, oh man, I hit the open market and I need to relearn everything I did. Things aren't going well for me in New York. And then bam, act 3, just rides off into the sunset with the 3.5 ERA for his whole career. It's awesome. I want to vote for him, but I don't think he gets in. We need guys like Darvish and Wainwright and Cole Hamels to get in before him, basically.
Yeah, I'll start with I'll start with Arenado, actually, because he's easy. He's a yes. 6-time platinum Glover, probably the only guy who will ever do that. So he's a yes for me. Actually, Denzel Clark might be a 6-time platinum Glover if he can hit the ball. But Sonny Gray is interesting, man, because he's got 3 years that have led him to a top 7 Cy Young finish in his career. That's 2015, 2019, and 2023. If he grabbed the Cy Young in one of those years, or 2 of those years, I think we'd be like, yep, Sonny Gray is a Hall of Famer. But those are his only 3 years that he was an all-star. Like, he has had some good years outside of that, and definitely, has been snubbed in some spots as well too. He's made big postseason starts, maybe not that big in the grand scheme of things, but that 2013 start for us was pretty cool. Almost
like a Mussina.
33.6 at age 35. He signed through 2027. If he was signed through like 29, I'd be like, yeah, let's fucking do it. But signed through 27 means he's a free agent when he's 37, 38 years old, actually, because his birthday is coming up somewhat soon. Or not somewhat soon, but by the time that the free agency market will hit. So is someone going to be like, yeah, Sonny, you're 38 years old. I'll give you a 2-year, $25 million deal to go pitch for us. Yeah, but then he's got a 7 ERA and it doesn't matter. Man, Ian would like him because he likes to wear number 54 his entire career. I say no. I don't. I'd love to see him get in. That'd be really cool. But I think Sonny Gray just misses. On to the NL West, perhaps the division with the most names outside of the AL East, maybe. Starting off with the Diamondbacks, what do you got here?
With Arizona, I think the way Ketel Marte has been able to hit at second base, one of those tough positions, is enough for me to give him the nod. I'm not going to think too hard about the metrics. I think when I watch him, I see one of the best hitters of the 2000s. Another guy that gets a little murkier now that will be on the ballot after that, who knows, Corbin Burns, going for another Tommy John now. That makes things incredibly difficult for him. But I thought we should shout him out. And then the last guy, Corbin Carroll, another one of those really electric outfielders that's gonna pick up so much WAR throughout the years. He's just got to stay healthy.
I'll start with Ketel. 33.4 WAR at age 31. He's in his peak now, which is also really cool as well too. 2-time All-Star, Silver Slugger. He's got 2 top 5 finishes for MVP over a bit of a gap period as well too. So there's that sustained greatness for him. I think he does get in because he's a second baseman. I think he could get to like 50 WAR as a second baseman who's mainly a pure hitter. Corbin Carroll, I think, is a yes. Last year I was a bit hesitant because of his shoulder injury. He's fully healed and he's fucking amazing to watch now. 12.5 WAR at age 24. Corbin Burns is a tough one now with his second Tommy John surgery. So I think he's a no. And then a guy who I don't think gets in, but we'll have some fun counting stats at the end of his career. A guy who's probably going to get his 6th 30-homer season of his career already at age 33 is Eugenio Suarez. He's got 294 homers in his career. Age 33, has posted at least 3 WAR in 6 different seasons. That's kind of cool. Like he's had some good years for sure. Was not like a Hall of Famer. But Carlos Santana type vibe for him once the
Sure.
career's over. Moving on to Colorado, maybe Izzy Tovar, maybe Brenton
I
Doyle.
didn't do it. I had
Yeah,
Tovar 2 years ago, I think. I think we've done this a couple times, but nobody this year.
yeah. I was a big Tovar guy. He hasn't had the greatest year this year. He's battled injury as well too. Nobody's really had a good year for the Rockies. I think he's a fun case study. If he was playing in New York, what would the narrative be around him instead? Um, but he's a no for me. Brenton Doyle, fun, but the bat just isn't there. On to the Dodgers.
Yeah, this one's exciting. Right off the bat, we have Clayton Kershaw, first ballot Hall of Famer. We have Freddie Freeman, first ballot Hall of Famer, and now postseason legend. We have Shohei Ohtani, something we have never seen before, ever, in any sport. So I don't know what else to say for Ohtani. That's I hate to leave it short. That's why I'm kind of rambling. But Shohei Ohtani will be in the Hall of Fame if he retires today. And then another guy, Mookie Betts. I think he's done enough now. Where even if he does have a rough second half, everybody knows Mookie Betts. Everybody knows he's going to get the job done there. A guy who's on pace is a new Dodger, Blake Snell, double Cy Youngs. That's something that doesn't happen a lot. AL and NL. Let's get him some good postseason starts. Maybe he has a memorable game on the resume. That'll get him in the Hall of Fame. And then one more guy I wanted to shout out was Yamamoto. Little earlier than your usual, a little older than your usual prospect here, but a guy who could become one of the best pitchers in the National League, and he's on a massive contract too.
Yeah. I'll start off with Kershaw. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. The rest of these guys, and I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys to mention. All these guys are under contract for an extended period of time. And something to think about is the World Series rings over the next, 5 to 10 years. I doubt this is the only one that the Dodgers will get over Shohei's contract. They'll probably get 2 or 3 more, and for all these guys, their cases will just be jumped off the charts. So first off, outside of Kershaw, we'll talk about the guys who are for sure Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts, and Shohei Ohtani. All right, now that we got that done, moving on to Blake Snell. He's an interesting one because he's got that super dominant period. He had that great World Series start, but got taken out in the 6th inning or something like that. So that's interesting. I think he's a no right now because of the injuries as well too, and I don't know how much 150 to 175 innings pitch seasons he's going to get with the Dodgers, just because they're going to be so cautious with his health. But he might be a guy that ends up getting another World Series or 2 in his career.
He's a ring guy, yeah.
Yoshinobu Yamamoto, great start. His career came in, dominated ever since he's been into the big leagues. Got a World Series ring in year 1, which is cool. If he's a guy who has 7 All-Stars, a Cy Young, 4 World Series rings, that's a resume right there. And I don't know. I think he's a yes when it's all said and done for him. And then Will Smith.
Yeah,
he is signed for a long time. He's signed through 2033. He's got 21 WAR at age 30, which maybe isn't the most, but he's a 2-time World Series champ, a 2-time All-Star. If he gets 5, 6 rings as a catcher, that's an in. You made it, big dog. So I'll say it's close for Will Smith. I just can't give him the yes yet. But we'll move on to the Padres.
Yeah, another kind of easy one to start off with San Diego. I think Machado will get in. I don't know if I'll ever forgive him for ending Dustin Pedroia's career and all the other BS, but it seems like everyone else has forgotten about all of that, so that should get him in, no problem. There's 4 more guys in the I have will get on the ballot. After that, who knows, man? We'll start off with Fernando Tatis. Obviously, a PED suspension is not ideal on there, so probably not. Xander Bogaerts is going to play forever. He could be a guy who gets a ridiculous amount of hits. Same with Luis Arias, so I have them kind of grouped together. Yu Darvish is also going to be on the ballot. I would give him the nod because I think he's one of the best Japanese players ever. A lot of iconic moments, a lot of perfect games into the 8th and the 9th, even though I don't think he ever got it done, which is crazy. But a guy I would definitely do it because we have to look at innings pitched differently now. Guys don't go late into games, and Darvish came right in the beginning of that era. Also was older, too, just like Yamamoto. And then Jackson Merrill, dude, he could end up with 2,500 hits himself. So we got to mention him.
Yeah, 4 guys to mention for me. Machado, I think, is a yes at this point. I think the consistency that he's had in his career will get him in by the time his contract's up. Fernando Tatis, when the stats are, it's over and he's retired, the stats are going to say yes, but the suspension is going to say no. So we'll move on from that. Xander Bogaerts, I think, has a better chance than expected. 40.7 WAR at age 32. He signed through 2033, which is outright ridiculous. 1,700 hits, 189 homers. We're looking at a guy that's probably going to get 2,500 hits and 300 homers in his career. He's a 2-time World Series champ, 5-time Silver Slugger, 4-time All-Star. Even if he doesn't make an All-Star team again or Silver Slugger again, doesn't win a World Series again, he's got a good chance, man. And as a shortstop as well, too, I think is pretty interesting. So I'll go ahead and say yes for Bogaerts. And then Merrill, I've said this with a few guys, but I think he's the one guy, position player-wise, that has the best chance out of any 22-year-old right now because of how mature the bat looks right now. He's put it on the field as well, too. We've seen a good season from him last year. Also, that was his first season in center field. So we're going to see the defense get better as time goes on. He's battled a little bit of injury this year, but I think he's a guy that can get to 6-7 WAR pretty consistently in his career, especially once he becomes 23, 24, 25 years old and gets into his prime. And he's not a free agent until 2036.
Wow.
So I don't know why he signed that deal, 10 years, $156 million, because he's worth a bit more than that. But have fun in San Diego, Jackson Merrill. Yeah, I think he's in. Moving on to the Giants. Last thing we got.
Justin Verlander, another one of the most exciting players I've ever seen live. It's a crazy experience. I'm sure even at 40 years old, it's still a sight to see. So don't need to argue about that one. Another guy who I haven't really changed my views on in a few years now is Logan Webb. This guy is capable of being an ace up to his age 40 season because he doesn't need to throw hard. He gets guys out in other ways. He's been so dominant, definitely on pace. And a guy I would vote for. If we're questioning guys like Sonny Gray and Yu Darvish to maybe be on the ballot, then Logan Webb should have no problem, right? He's pitching in the same era.
Verlander's the first ballot. I hate him so much, but he's going to get in. Matt Chapman's a fun one. I think it's going to be close. Yeah. 40.6 WAR, age 32, signed through 2030. Now he got that long contract. He's a single-time All-Star, but a 5-time Gold Glover, 2-time Platinum Glove. He's a guy that could get to 60, 65 WAR in his career. It's possible. And I think once he gets there, that's a resume that will be pretty interesting. Logan Webb, fun guy, 19.3 WAR at age 28, only a single-time All-Star, but nearly has 1,000 innings pitched already. I do think he'll be a guy that gets in once he gets to, age 37 and he's got 3,000 innings pitched or whatever it feels like at that point. Willie Adames is a guy I had as yes last year. He's got a 7-year contract, so if he, becomes Willie Adames again and turns in 4 WAR seasons, 5 WAR seasons, back to back seasons, yeah. But as of right now, no. So he's just off my list now. Yeah. But that's going to do it for our future Hall of Famer portion of the MLB. Next year we'll probably do this as well too, to see how things line up. But we've got an NBA Finals to check in on.
Yeah, we kind of previewed it last time. We had our thoughts. I at least thought that OKC probably wouldn't have too much of a problem with Indiana. Well, game 1, Indiana stuns them. They have one of the biggest comebacks in finals history, Tyrese Halliburton hits a game winner. They win 111-110, despite SGA scoring 38 points. They get the job done. It was an amazing comeback. Game 2 was on Sunday. OKC wasn't having any of that, right? Even though Indiana kept up with them, OKC wins 123-107. SGA has 34 points again. They shut down everybody except for Halliburton. And here's where the struggles come. They are going back to Indiana. The thing about this team, this Indiana team, they got more energy than any other team in this entire tournament I've seen so far. It's kind of crazy. So maybe at home they can get a kind of resurgence to their fast break offense. Other than that, I don't know, man. Pascal Siakam was 3 for 11 last game. I think they may have just figured out how to beat Indiana, make Halliburton beat them. If he gets tired, that's a wrap.
Yeah, I'm having no comment on this series.
Okay.
Oh, I'll have a comment, but it's not going to mean much. It seems like whenever Indiana's counted out, they find a way to get a win and be like, "Yep, we're right back in it." That's exactly how it's gone for them this year, especially in the playoffs. So you don't know until you know with them, and that's something that's really cool to watch. And it makes the games must-watch TV, even if they're down 14 with 4 minutes to go.
Mm-hmm. I have one more thing to talk about before we go on to our bets. Officially, a new quarterback in Pittsburgh for the Steelers. That's Aaron Rodgers. We've been hinting at it all March, April, May. Now we're in June, I guess. So I had to count it out. I lose track of my calendar sometimes. But yeah, man, we're in June, and Rodgers is finally showing up to camp. Sounds familiar, but we won't get into that yet. We'll talk about that week 1 when we play Pittsburgh. That'll be crazy. But hey, there's a reason they didn't draft anyone until the 5th round. They knew Rodgers was coming. He just had to go get married or whatever he was doing. That was a shocker to me. Anyways, he got married in the offseason. So good for Rodgers, already making it about yourself. Pittsburgh, though, is a team with a great defense. It's going to be weird.
Yeah, I got no comment on that one right now. It is weird looking at it. I don't really know how to piece things up right now with that connection. But what I will do is I'll send us to our bets where we went 2 for 4 last week. I had for my layup Chicago versus Washington over 8.5 on Wednesday. It was like 2-0 in that game, unfortunately. There's a lot of base runners early in that one. But I think Matt Boyd took a perfect game into the 6th inning or whatever. So that did not work. Skyler had Detroit over Chicago on Friday. That did happen. That was Tariq Skubal's start, so he gets a win there. This week, I had Seattle over Arizona on Wednesday. That is a Ryan Wu start versus Erod. So Seattle's offense probably going to have a good day because Erod's been terrible. Arizona's offense, which is really good, could be neutralized by Brian Wu, who's been amazing this year. So Seattle gets a win here.
With my layup going back to a series we actually just saw, Boston, New York. This time we're switching sides, switching towns, and I'm going to go on Friday night with Boston to win. That's Garrett Crochet against Yarborough for the Yankees, who has been a great pickup, but it doesn't get much better than the ace. Crochet's been one of the best pitchers in baseball.
Bold predictions. I had Arizona over Atlanta on Wednesday. That did happen. Good for me. That was not the crazy game, which they scored 7 in the 9th. That was the Merrill Kelly start. He actually took no-hitter into like the 6th or 7th inning, which was kind of crazy. So that goes green. Skyler has Atlanta win series at SF. It went red. And the Diamondbacks got swept. Or not
they
the
blew
Diamondbacks.
Every game, man.
Braves. Yeah, they did blow every game. That was crazy. Just how the Braves have been this year, at least over the past month. This week, I have the Royals over the Yankees on Wednesday. That is a Chris Bubich start versus Clark Schmidt. I don't think it's a crazy bold prediction, but it'll probably be plus odds. So I got Kansas City getting a win there.
For my bold prediction, I'm going to stick with the strategy rivalry series happening this week. I got Milwaukee winning the series against St. Louis. Everybody in the Central outside of Chicago seems like they're just jumbled together, and we got to figure out a way to separate them. So I'm going to have them not split this 4-gamer. I'm going with Milwaukee because not only is Mizorowski making his first career start in this series in Game 1, we're also going to see Quintana, Peralta, who have been their 2 best starters this season, and also Savalier. I think it's Savalier against Palin something on St. Louis. That could be a toss-up game for Game 4. So we'll say Milwaukee wins the series.
That's going to do it, though, for episode 248. Maybe a bit of a longer episode than what we were expecting.
Yeah.
But next week, episode 249, we're getting close to episode 250. Any part of notes, Skyler?
Hope we have a great finish to the finals. And it seems like we'll probably be done with this thing. Oh, wait, no, they're having 3 days off in between. So I guess we won't be done with the finals necessarily when we come back. Sunday is Game 7 next Sunday. Monday would be Game 5, the day before we come back. So hopefully we're previewing Game 6 of the finals when we come back.
Yeah. We will see you guys next week.
Yes, sir.